Hi everyone, my name is Melanie, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience learning Spanish with Dreaming Spanish. So, as you can see by the title, I've just reached 150 hours of comprehensible input. I started learning with this method about 2 months ago when I decided that I really wanted to commit to learning Spanish after several failed attempts in the past with more traditional methods. I studied Spanish for many years in school, all throughout middle school, all throughout high school. I had Spanish classes. So that definitely gave me a bit of a foundation. But anyone who's taken language classes in public schools in the US, I'm sure, knows that it doesn't take you very far, honestly. You kind of just learn very similar stuff over and over, and there's not a lot of like practical usage of the language. So I had a lot of huge gaps like in vocabulary and grammar when I was starting out. For instance, I didn't know what the word algo meant. I didn't know what tan meant, tanto. These are just a few that I wrote down that I remember when I was first learning with Dreaming Spanish. I just did not know these words at all. And you hear them all the time. They're such common words, but I had just never heard them. So that's what I mean when I say there was some gaps in my knowledge. I decided to start learning Spanish for a few reasons. Like I said, I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I had a Spanish teacher in my sophomore year of high school who was amazing. I learned a lot in his class. He kind of established my love for language learning, but I didn't have the resources at the time or even the discipline, I feel like. However, now my boyfriend is fluent in Spanish, and I have a few friends who are also fluent in Spanish. I live in the US, there's Spanish speaking people everywhere. It's very useful to know Spanish. So I was doing a bit of research on Reddit about methods to learn Spanish, and I stumbled across Dreaming Spanish. So, like 2 months ago, I made an account and got started with watching like 15 to 30 minutes of videos per day. Funnily enough, I started out by watching the Dreaming Spanish podcast intermediate videos, which are, quite difficult to start out with. I started out watching with captions on because I was not aware at the time that it's better to learn without captions. So I was understanding like 40% or 30% of it. It was very bad. I was missing so much. I was not used to hearing the sounds of the language. I was not used to hearing it spoken at this speed. I was not used to hearing different accents. I just had I was not ready for that yet at all. That was way above my level to start out. So after that, I did a bit more research and I started watching videos without captions. I went back to some of the beginner videos. I was watching a lot of videos with Michelle, Augustina, Shell, these very easy videos, level 30 or so. And I did notice within the first 50 hours that I was progressing quite quickly with these beginner videos. I started getting like 1 or 2 hours a day after a few weeks. It just became easier. When you start out, it's like exhausting to watch these videos. It feels like your brain is like on overdrive trying to understand something that's so unfamiliar. Like you're just simply not used to hearing the language this way at all. It's very tiring. But as I went on, it got easier and easier, and I just kind of wanted to get through these beginner videos because truthfully, they're pretty boring. There's only so much they can talk about. So yeah, at about 50 hours, I was able to almost understand videos at a difficulty of like 40 or so. So like, you know, just below where it would usually go into intermediate is where I was at that point. And at this point, I kind of stopped watching nearly as much Dreaming Spanish videos and I switched over to podcasts for a little bit. I was doing both, but I started listening to Quentame. If you've heard of it, it's just like the very simple, easy, like recommended to absolute beginners podcast. It's honestly kind of boring. I watched like 80 episodes of it. I found it even more boring than the beginner videos. It was a real struggle to get through. I was not enjoying it, but I really just wanted to pick up enough language to where I could watch stuff that I enjoy. So after about 80 episodes of that, I went on vacation for a week. So it was like a long flight there, a long flight back. I was on the beach the whole week. So I was just listening to podcasts a lot, sitting on the beach, like honestly 4 to 5 hours a day most of the time. I was very, very lazy that week. But I was listening to Chill Spanish Listening, which is like 4 to 5 minute episodes. I love that podcast. Like, it was great for me at the time. It was so much more natural and relaxed than Quentin honestly. I really loved it. It brought me really far. I probably listened to like, honestly, 200 episodes, maybe more, of that podcast. So that brought me to maybe like 90, almost 100 hours by the end of my vacation. And when I got back from my vacation, I went back and I tried to watch an intermediate video, and it was probably like high 40s difficulty, and I was shocked. I tried to watch this video with Augustina where she went to this McDonald's that was in like an old plane. It was very strange, but I watched it very early on. Like, one of the first videos I tried to watch was that video, and I could not understand it at all when I was at like 5 hours maybe. And then after this vacation, I went back, and this video was so easy to me. I was able to understand most everything, like 99% of things in this video were totally comprehensible to me. It was the first like mind-blowing moment I had in this process. I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. It was also at this time that I feel like I started actually having fun with this process, and it felt like less of a chore. Like, getting all this input every day is something that I grew to enjoy. For instance, past the 100-hour mark, I started watching Spanish Boost Gaming videos. I started listening to his podcast when I was at work, just doing like mindless stuff. And I got through all of that. I love the Spanish Boost content. Like, Martin is like a saint. I'm so happy that that kind of content exists, honestly. I also, at like 130 hours or so, started trying to listen to Espanol con Juan, which right now is like just a little bit above my comprehension level, just a little bit. If I'm paying really close attention, I can get most everything, but anyone who's listened to him knows like he's kind of like hyper and like jumps around a lot and like kind of like stutters over things sometimes, and it's just very hectic and hard to follow sometimes, but I can feel myself almost there. It's just so amazing the amount of stuff that I have learned in these past 150 hours. I have so much more confidence with this language. It's unbelievable. So much new vocabulary. I have a much more intuitive understanding of grammar and how verbs work. There's a lot more things that I hear and I instantly understand what they mean without having to translate anything in my head at all. I mean, this is a common example, but when you hear the word hola, like, you don't have to translate that in your head to say, oh, that means hello. And now I'm experiencing that with a lot more Spanish things. I've just heard them so many times that I don't have to think even for a split second about what it means. I just know what it means instantly. And kind of on that same topic, I've started to notice that I can tell when something seems like wrong. For instance, I have a friend, or my roommate actually, who doesn't speak Spanish, but she likes to say some things to my other roommate who is fluent in Spanish. So she'll just say like simple phrases that she knows or whatever. And the other day she said something to my roommate who's fluent in Spanish, and I heard it and I was like, that just doesn't sound right. Like, I don't know why, but it doesn't sound right. So I asked my friend who speaks Spanish, and she was like, yeah, you're right. Like, that's not exactly how you would say it. That was just shocking to me. I was like, I couldn't explain it. I didn't know why, but it just sounded off to me. It's like when someone says something in English that like is almost correct, but it just like sounds clunky or weird. I definitely think at this point I'm a little further ahead on the roadmap than what it suggests because of all the Spanish I took in school. Like, it certainly helps give me a good foundation, but I still feel very unconfident with a lot of things, and I get frustrated with myself sometimes. Like, sometimes I'll come across like a native talking in public, or my friend will just be talking to someone in Spanish, or things like this, and it just sounds like a bunch of gibberish to me. It just escapes me. It's too fast. I can't understand it. And I understand that that will resolve with time, but it's almost frustrating. It's like, I want to understand it now. I already feel like I've put so much time into it, but in reality, 150 hours is like nothing. I haven't started actually giving speaking like a real attempt yet. Sometimes I'll say small things to my friend or my boyfriend, like simple stuff that I feel confident about, but it still feels weird to speak. And sometimes I think in my head of how I would say something in Spanish, and I just realized that there's still a lot missing there. There's still a lot of everyday language, that everyday vocabulary that I simply don't have yet, or that if I heard someone say it, I would understand, but I can't actively produce it. But considering how many new words now are in my active vocabulary, they come to my mind very quickly that just weren't there before, I have a lot of faith that this will resolve itself with time. I've just had so much experience picking up new words. It's kind of funny, like you'll be listening to videos or podcasts and you keep hearing certain words that stand out and you like almost know what they mean, but not exactly. And then you hear it one more time in a certain context and it just clicks and you're like, oh my God, that's what that means. And it stays with you and it's in your vocabulary now. It's so awesome. Like from one time hearing it to the next, it's just now it's in your vocabulary. It's so satisfying. I love it. I'm probably gonna hold off on speaking for another few hundred hours. I'm not sure if I'll wait the recommended time that the roadmap says. We'll see. I just want it to feel, I don't want it to feel like that it's like clunky, that I'm pulling these unnatural like words and phrases out of me that just aren't seated deep in there yet. And I also worry about my pronunciation. I'm still getting used to the sounds of the language, getting accustomed to that so that I can actually reproduce them properly. And so that I'll know when I say something that has the wrong pronunciation, I'll just be able to tell that it sounds wrong. And as for reading, I'm hoping to start that at like 300 hours or so. I tried to read this very low rated graded reader, but I was honestly struggling with staying engaged with it. I just didn't feel like I was ready yet. I didn't feel like I had the tools to do it yet, but we'll see. But yeah, I could talk about this for a long time. I won't say much more, but I'm so excited to see how I'll continue to progress. And I honestly intend to keep up the high volume at which I'm watching videos and listening to podcasts and such at this point. Like 3 to 4 hours on average a day is like where I'm at now. And it seems like a lot, but in reality, I don't feel like I'm doing a whole lot, honestly. Like I do before bed. If I'm driving around, I'll listen to a podcast. I do sit down at home for like 1 or 2 extra hours a day that before I would have been like doing some bullshit or doom scrolling or something like that. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm gonna keep doing these updates, probably just at the, Dreaming Spanish levels that they've set, so 300 hours, 600 hours, etc. But we'll see. Maybe I'll do something in between if I feel like there's anything notable to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it very much. Ciao, ciao.